There, now we can hear you.
How's your day?
It was all right. How was your weekend? We coming off a holiday weekend.
Oh yeah, it was really good. It was pretty low key. Like I feel like when you've seen a fireworks show, you've seen them all. So, it is it I got to watch some fireworks on the lake on Saturday, and then me and Leah were going to go downtown. But then because I have my parking pass, like I can park right on the river. But I looked and I was like, I don't even know if I can have access. Like, I think they closed off that road that it was on anyways. And I'm like, I also just don't like dealing with that much people, like that many people or that much traffic. I don't know.
I don't either. I don't either.
You hung out with Pam.
I did. So, episode 20 was with Tyler Borst
Mhm.
for Military Life, and Tyler was home on Saturday. So, I was able to be there with Pam and Dan, and we got to see Tyler. So, I got to spend some time with him.
Oh,
And
no.
of course, I tease her that he is my second husband.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we went to her brother and sister-in-law's, and they have a dog, and everybody knows how much I love animals.
Mhm.
And I brought the dog up on this it was a couch-ish. It was an outside couch. And I, called him, or she wanted to come up and sit by me. Well, I stopped petting her, and then she scratched me with her paw. So
Oh
I
my
have little
God.
Maisie scars there, but
My parents' dog name is Maisie. It's such a cute name.
I love that name. And my hair is just wild because I just got done at the gym. So this is what you get tonight.
Yeah. What'd you do at the gym?
Just walked.
Okay.
Easy walk. Today was an easy walk.
Yeah, I heard a polo by you about the deferral of, I think what is it, the Rocket? I don't even know. I
Yeah,
don't
the rock and roll Nashville.
I don't know that I actually ever signed up for that.
Yeah, you did. You signed up for the half marathon.
I did?
Yes.
Oh.
So we were gonna we were gonna do the half marathon in Nashville and then turn right around and do the half marathon for Madison.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
then I switched mine to a 6.15 instead of the half marathon.
Mhm.
And then it got deferred.
Mhm.
So I deferred it to 2021. And then we only have until July 16th to pick what we want to do. I don't remember, except for the date is November 20th, which in Wisconsin is the first weekend of deer season, which I've never missed at the cabin in
Well,
like
then
40 some years. So I don't think I'll be able to come down to Nashville.
I'm getting a little tired of these deferrals. I'm losing track of them.
I know, I
I've
am too.
deferred so many things, and like I've deferred tickets to things and registrations to things. I can't keep track of all of them. And I feel like swear like you deferred your Wisconsin thing. I already deferred it once. And then I was supposed to be able to defer it again and I wasn't able to. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I'll come to Wisconsin soon enough, so. And next year I'll be there anyways for the half marathon. I just have to make sure I sign up for it again.
yes. Yes, super excited for that. 2022. It's going
2022.
to be a big year, 2022.
Oh yeah. Like if as if this year wasn't big enough. Like I mean, we said it was going to be greatest year yet, but I mean, I so far thinking it's pretty amazing.
It is good. I am already looking forward to 2022.
Oh yeah, I'm loving it. Well, speaking of looking forward to, I don't know if this is a segue, but
Why
speaking
not?
of, yeah, like looking forward to being excited about today's topic is a little bit on those lines, but not quite. It's about positivity, but specifically toxic positivity. Very
We've
different from each other.
Yeah. We've talked about it a few times, and this request actually came from a person on my options trading or in my options trading group. And I don't know if it's a male or a female because sometimes in these groups that we have, people disguise their names. But this person reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you have a conversation about toxic positivity?" And I said, "Absolutely." We had talked about it a little bit two podcasts ago, I believe, right around the 19-minute mark. But it really brought up there is a lot of positivity and when does it turn toxic? And you had a discussion with, I believe it was your boss or one of your bosses about it.
Yeah, I had a discussion. This was probably months ago at this point, but he mentioned it. He just came up to me randomly, and this is not a topic I think we've ever talked about before he
Mhm.
mentioned it. But he's like, "Have you?" He's like, "Hey, Ashley, have you heard of toxic positivity?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was funny because at the time, you and I had just talked about it,
Mhm.
and yeah, we had a whole discussion about it and just what it was, and I don't know. It's just it's hard to explain. Should we read a definition of what exactly toxic positivity is?
Yeah, do you have one pulled up?
No, but I'll find one.
Go get one. Yeah,
I should have had this already.
we had talked about it in the previous episodes. Ashley and I wanted to make sure that we made sure that people knew that we were not doing toxic positivity. While we are, I would say, the vast majority of the time, happy, positive, forward thinking, we get up on the right side of the bed most every single day. That is not the message that we were trying to give to the listeners. So it wasn't about toxic positivity, it's about being real. And toxic positivity is actually detrimental to mental health.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have an episode on it, and then somebody reached out and said, "Hey Robin, can you do an episode on toxic positivity?" And I thought, this is really synchronicity because we've already been talking about toxic positivity, and what a great way to loop this in, especially with mental health, especially with coming out of COVID. Why don't you give us the definition?
Yeah. So I think I mean you did a great job pre-explaining it. I think one of the main things you just said too is the idea of realness. So it says that toxic positivity is the belief that no matter how dire or difficult a situation is, people should maintain a positive mindset. A lot of people liken it to like the good vibes only kind of
Yep.
what is it? It's kind of a movement at this point, but it says that while there are benefits of being an optimist and engaging in positive thinking, toxic positivity instead rejects difficult emotions in favor of a cheerful, often positive, falsely positive facade. So it's basically saying it's okay to be look on the bright side and everything, but not at the expense of ignoring the way you actually feel in favor of just doing it I don't know how to explain it. And of course, like we're gonna do our best to explain it, but and
Let
I
me
don't
give
have all the answers.
let me give an example.
Mhm.
I wake up and I go downstairs, I make my coffee, and I spill my coffee coming up the stairs to my office because I work from home. I spill it all over the carpet and I spill it on my hand and burn my hand. And then a little bit later, I look down and see that my hand is actually starting to blister. So then I go to the emergency room. But on my way to the emergency room, I get into a small accident, a minor fender bender, but it's still an accident. And then I get to the emergency room and realize that I forgot my insurance card. And then I get some bad news from a good friend that somebody passed away that we both know. And by the time I get in to talk to the doctor, I'm already in tears with everything that's already happened during the day. And the worst thing that somebody could do would say, "You know what, Robin, it's all right. Just be positive and have a positive mindset." Really negating all of the feelings that I had all the way
Mhm.
up to that point, when really the best thing to do is to listen to the person, have a
Mhm.
conversation with them, or help them find some mental health experts who can actually help them. And I did do research like usual.
Shocking. Wow, you just blow my mind.
And there are days where we all have this. You have them, I have them, we all have
I
them.
often confide in you, and I have these days.
Yes, and I often confide in you when I have my off days. I did, was it Thursday? I think it was Thursday I told you. It was just an off day and I didn't negate my feelings. I addressed them. The difference though that I think is I problem solved what they were. So I did, not to be like too nerdy, but did basically a root cause analysis to say what's really making me feel off today. Do I
Mhm.
not have right nutrition? Do I not have the right hydration? what am I doing that I like and what am I not doing that I liked? And I had a list that I actually showed Ashley on the polo. Like, Ashley, these are the things, and actually I could share them. The things that I weren't doing was I wasn't reading daily,
Mhm.
which I love to do. The thing that I was doing was I was working out daily. I
Mhm.
wasn't getting the right hydration. I did feel like I was getting the right nutrition. I felt that there are some things that Ashley, Pam, and I would polo every morning, and we haven't been poloing every morning.
I'm
That was
jealous.
something that I was missing. I was missing the water. I was missing just things to recharge my battery. And I felt great the next day. Started doing everything that I felt like the root cause was why wasn't I feeling great. The most important thing about that is that I didn't negate that I was feeling off. And I reached out and I talked to you about it, talked to Pam about it. And then the next day I problem solved and did everything that I knew I should be doing that I hadn't been doing, and I felt fantastic.
Mhm.
So toxic positivity would be Ashley saying, "Gosh, Robin, that really sucks, but if you take if you have a positive outlook, tomorrow will be better, and open your mind or have a positive mindset." But that's not what you did, and you supported my problem solving. So I think the problem solving part for me is always crucial.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Is I feel like when you, and I've known people like this too, where it's where you hear like the good vibes only, or I don't want to hear about that. I think a lot of toxic positivity can come from also when you are just around someone who doesn't want that on themselves too. Um, but it really gives, when you're able to kind of come face to face with your emotions and not ignore them, like you said, it really gives you the opportunity to look and say, why do I feel this way? How can I better myself, or how can I get to the root of the problem? Because I mean, that's a lot of what therapy is, to be honest. Like, I went to like 7 months of therapy last year, and man, and while you're, I mean, my therapist was always about like, let's make sure we keep a, like, underlying, like, let's be positive, but not really, but not like, oh, you can only be positive. It was very much like there's always, like, there are going to be better days. Like, you feel this way and that's okay, but they're always, your emotions are like waves. They come and go. Happiness comes and goes, sadness comes and goes. And she really helped me because I think sometimes, and not that I would do it to other people, but sometimes I have been not known to, but like I can be like, oh, well, everything's fine internally when things aren't. And I haven't taken a look and been like, why do I feel this way? Like, I do feel sad. Where is that coming from?
Mhm.
So I think you're right. Like, I know therapy was monumental in helping me get to the root of a lot of my emotions that I hadn't necessarily come to terms with. But I mean, but you don't have to go to a therapist to do any of that. I mean, you can have friends like Robin and I, where you just talk about it with each other, because therapy just sometimes is a way to maybe do it in an unbiased situation. Or, I mean, there are so many wonderful reasons you should go to a therapist, but um it's like, yeah, friends can help you as well.
Yeah, I was going to say in my research there were a couple different phases, and I do think therapy looks different to two
Everyone.
different people. I think
Hmm.
you went, I would say, the traditional route. I typically just talk to my friends.
Hmm.
I've never been to a therapist, but I can see how I wanted to be a therapist at one point,
Very good.
actually.
You
That's
would
what
be
my
very, oh, it's so fun. I love therapy. I need to go back. It's just fun to talk to someone. You can tell them anything.
Yeah, that's what my undergrad is in. But
Oh yeah.
during the research, there are different stages, and there is, just feeling down or feeling sad, having a bad day,
Hmm.
and then it's having a bad week, having a bad month, and then it turns into a chronic problem, and then it turns into basically a full-fledged, well, chronic is a full-fledged illness, but there were 4 stages, and the 4th stage was the worst, of course.
Hmm.
And there are different ways to move through each of the 4 phases of it, and it is a mental health issue, and depression is really what stirs on a lot of it, and somebody being toxic and having toxic positivity to somebody who's truly clinically depressed is really not the way to go.
Yeah, that is not at all a good thing because yeah, there are definitely, I mean, in all instances, you should never negate someone's feelings about anything. And depression is very real. Like it is, and I've literally heard people that have said, "Oh, if you just say you're happy, then your brain will change it." And
Mhm.
there is some truth to that, but depression is an actual clinical diagnosis. Like there are sometimes it's just not something you can just think away, you
Yeah,
know.
I'm glad you brought that up. You and I had looked at a TED Talk, and I took it to the team, my team at work, my full-time job, and said, "Okay, I'd like you guys to watch this on your own time whenever you feel like it, and then if you can bring 3 takeaways about what it was." And it was about changing your mindset,
Mhm.
being open-minded, changing your mindset, and how things look different. And it wasn't toxic positivity at all, but it was interesting that the people that I thought would have the most interest and the most takeaways actually had the least or none. And then the people that I thought would kind of not naysay it, but just not really be into it, really had a lot more takeaways than I would have ever expected. So there you're right, there is scientific proof and studies that show that having a more positive forward mindset does help. But again, you cannot negate somebody's feelings or you cannot negate your own feelings.
I think too, yeah, and it doesn't even necessarily have the whole changing your mindset. I have so many books, and I'm sure you do too, about just like the idea of changing your mindset. There are thousands of books out there. It's very well preached and everything. And I don't think that, I mean, toxic positivity is one thing, but we go through an absolute range of emotions, anger, sadness. I think there's like a really cool wheel. We'll have to post this on Facebook, but there's like a wheel of emotions. Let me see if I can pull it up while we're talking. But I had a friend actually show this to me because some people, and this is also something that I've learned too, is like I'm a very um, expressive person. Like I don't know, like I just share a lot of things with people, and but some people are less expressive, and some people don't even know what emotion they're feeling. And so some therapists have this really cool thing. It's like an emotion wheel, and there's a bunch of different categories. I wonder, I'll have to see if I can find it. There's just multiple levels of like sadness. So here's some examples. um like when you're feeling sadness, there's multiple ways you can feel sadness. Rejected is one of the ways, uninterested, lonely, guilty, and hurt, but those are all different forms of sadness, which is really cool. Like fear is worried, insecure, vulnerable, inadequate, or embarrassed, all very different versions. But we'll post that on Facebook. But it's just really interesting because me being expressive, like there are some people that don't even necessarily know what emotion they're feeling, and it's important that they feel like a safe spot to eventually be able to share that. I don't even know where I was going with this, to be honest.
I don't know, but it sounds interesting because I
Yeah.
do think that life is active, life can be hectic, life can be overbooked, life can be booked. It doesn't even have to be overbooked, but you can have your calendar full
Mm-hmm.
day after day after day, especially with kids and their sports or what have you. And I think sometimes it's easier to say, "Well, I'm just mad."
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are you mad about?
Yeah.
They'll tell you, but unless you can see that whole wheel like you're talking about and all the different levels of frustration or different types of sadness or different types of anger,
Mm-hmm.
you're always saying, Well, it's, hi, Ashley, how are you? I'm fine. How are you, Robin? I'm fine." You use fine, and it's really not an emotion. It's just a statement. It's, I'm ecstatic. I get to see Ashley tonight, or I'm happy, or I'm tired. I just worked out.
Right. And I think that's a great point. Yeah, it's like I almost feel like we've been conditioned to do that. I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up knowing, like grew up kind of conditioned to say I'm fine,
Mhm.
or and then people, and I don't know if it's more because people feel like other people don't want to hear about their problems, or maybe it's because we don't want someone else to be toxically positive to us. Because oftentimes when you tell someone your problem, sometimes they're like, "Oh, it'll get better," or it'll be fine. And it's like, well, maybe people don't want to hear that either. And a mutual acquaintance of ours um, did I guess it was a challenge. This was years ago, and basically was challenging people to say, instead of saying "I'm fine" for a month, actually respond with something on the emotion wheel of how you
Oh,
feel, and see how it changes your life. Because I just think there's a way that you can just open up so much more authenticity with the people around you when you actually, I mean, there are obviously people that you don't want to say that to, that maybe you have no business, saying I feel despondent or something,
mhm.
but like with you and I, like I feel, I mean, we don't really say we're fine, but there are some people where it's like, yeah, there's no harm in saying how you actually feel if it's a friend or something. It was a cool challenge, so.
So last Thursday, for example, I told you I was exhausted.
Mhm.
I was mentally and physically exhausted.
Mhm.
But I think the difference is I problem solved right away. I did a root cause analysis of why am I mentally exhausted and then why am I physically exhausted? And I think once you get to them, at least you have a problem and a solution. And if that solution doesn't work, you can always go to solution B. So there's, in my mind, yes, there are always options and there's always solutions.
And this also is not necessarily anywhere that I know of, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but like I also feel like the opposite, like someone's sad, you say, "Oh, be positive," like in the whole changing your mindset. I don't think necessarily that positivity has to be the opposite of any of those emotions. Like sometimes just changing your mindset, like one thing last year when everything seemed to be crumbling down. Like one of the things I changed my mindset to wasn't to be positive, it was to be adventurous. And so I kept telling myself, you don't have to be happy about this, but I do want you to feel bold and take everything and like adventure to me was feel everything in the present, because I don't think there's anything more adventurous than looking yourself in the eye and feeling everything you need to feel. Like that was an adventure in itself, was just like learning to become very face to face with my emotions. So you're like, you don't necessarily have to be positive when you change your mindset, but there are so many ways you can change your mindset to to embrace your emotions, like feel curiosity. Like some of the times, like what you said, when you felt upset, you were curious and said, "Well, why do I feel this way?" That's a way to change your mindset without being, in my opinion, again, this is an opinion, to change your mindset without being toxically positive. Be
Yep.
curious. And
Yeah.
that's not negating your emotions at all, but it also is keeping your mind open.
See, and I would have last year when your world was crumbling and then you built it back real quick and very well. I would say that your mission was more about, and it wasn't about positivity. You're right. I completely agree with you on that. It was, you say it was adventure, and I called it active. You
Mhm.
stayed active. You stayed present in the moment, no matter what the moment was, no matter what the moment brought you. You were there, and it was raw, and some days were fantastic and other days just really weren't. But what you did do is you kept on and kept on and kept on. So I saw your life as active. You were
Yeah.
doing things after work, you were doing things during your lunch hour, you were doing different things that you normally weren't doing. It's interesting how you call it adventurous and I call it active.
Well, I think you kind of nailed it on the head. Be present. Like there is nothing more like emotion inducing than being present, because you are living in the now. You are living like moment to moment, feeling the emotions. Because I sometimes think when you're thinking toxic positivity, it's like you're trying to alter your state to a future state. Like you're not, I mean, when people are like things are going to get better, well, that's a future state. That's not taking into account right now.
Mhm.
So I
A
think you're
better
present.
a Yeah. I think a better answer would be, "I'm really sorry you're feeling that way. How can I help you?" Or,
Yeah.
"Can I help you?"
Yeah.
Or, "Do you just need an ear?" I
I'll
won't
talk.
Yeah, "Do you wanna talk? I'm here for you." That's really what we're trying to say in this episode is and we are here for you too. So if any of our listeners are feeling that way, you can always reach us on email. You can always reach us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram
Mhm.
because I do think that, well, don't worry about it, Ashley. It'll be better, I promise.
Mhm.
It probably will be just fine because we have coping skills, but not everybody has coping skills. And there are some real mental health illnesses out there where coping skills at that time are not going to help, but a real professional who's able to help you will be able to get through.
Yeah, and there's a lot of resources online. You know, they have like these therapies. Now, there's a guy at my work who told me like these, you just pay like a monthly fee and you can talk to I mean, that's awesome. It makes it much more affordable. I mean, I know what I was paying for therapy and it was really expensive. And so there's ways that you can, and or a friend like us, you know. But I think
Yes.
also one thing to note, and I think toxic positivity has increase because toxic positivity doesn't just have to be, hey, things are going to get better. It can also be on social media where it's just you're just hiding the way you feel, like just saying only putting pictures out of you in your best light doing amazing things because that's all it's part of toxic positivity, part of the definition is denying what's not there, what's there. And if you're really not feeling it but you're only putting pictures of a happy face, that's kind of its own toxic positivity.
Talk about opening up a can of worms.
Yeah, I
So
I noticed this last year where I would only put, you know, I got off of Instagram. I'm still technically I have a profile, but I'm not really on there anymore. And it's
no.
man, I started comparing myself to people on social media, and then I had to, like a friend, it might have been you, who was like, you know, people only put the best version, you know, they're not taking, you know, they're not going to show you what they're really doing. They're only showing. And I was like, Ella told me this too. And I was like, whoa,
Ella and I
uh,
are pretty smart.
you
Just
guys deserve
saying.
to be best friends. But yeah, I mean, I was like, whoa, you're right. And I was like, man, and granted, I loved all the adventures I had last year, but I'm like, yeah, you wouldn't know anything about me based on these pictures. Like, you don't
Not
know
even remotely.
anything about me. Like, I just showing. So, I mean, there will probably be a day where I return to Instagram, but I'm like, right now, I'm happy as heck, like being away from it because I don't compare and I don't look at these other people and think I'm not doing enough. Or I don't know. Do you consider that toxic positivity?
I do. I do. I'm like I said, talk about opening up a huge can of worms with social media and toxic positivity. Pam and I were talking about this too. Some people get really so I get super charged up when I see
Mhm.
these elite athletes or the Colin O'Brady's and the Jesse Itzlers and people who are out there doing all of these wild, crazy things. And I think, wow, that's so motivating. For me, it's motivating because I'm not comparing myself. And I was going to say, I think my biggest goal so far, even though we had New Year's resolutions at this point, so it's July 6th today, I feel like my biggest accomplishment this year is not comparing myself to other people.
You know,
I walk to the beat of my own drum because we all know I don't run. So I would be like walking and jogging
yeah.
to the beat of my own drum. But I have stopped comparing myself to other people. A couple people in the trading group talked to my mom. Well, so and so did this, or so and so made this, and so and so. And I said, but you don't know what they lost.
Mhm.
Stop comparing yourself to other people. Only compare yourself to you. Try to be a better you. Stop comparing. And I think that the people who are more unhappy are the people who compare themselves and they're not going to lose 100 pounds in a year by doing keto or the Mediterranean diet or doing who knows what kind of a crazy program that they're doing. Stop doing that. What do you want to do?
Want. Yeah, that's a huge takeaway I had from last year. And I think a lot of people find so much more happiness in life when you realize that like
the moment you start doing stuff for you, the world opens up because I mean, so many people on social media. I mean, how many times do we hear of these ultra people who are just doing things that aren't really happy in the end, or they commit suicide? They're it's just because you got this not facade. There are plenty of people doing, but just because you see a life on social media doesn't mean that's how that person really is. And again, depression, all of that is a big mental health issue because you can see happiness on the outside.
Hmm.
And not to say that everyone who posts on social media is trying to cover up their emotions at all. Like that is not
No.
true. It's just there we just have to be very mindful of just realizing, especially if you do find yourself comparing yourself to other people on social media, is you're only seeing a very small part of the picture. We know nothing about what that person is going behind because a lot of times we don't share that with others. And that's why it's so like freeing when you just start to do things for yourself and
Hmm.
love on yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of memes or sayings. I don't even know what they're called, but we had one that went around in our group. We have 4 people in our group that we share, I would say uplifting. They are more positive, but I would say they're more uplifting, actually. I guess it is
Was this our group,
uplifting and
our little four? Was
yeah, our little 4.
okay. I didn't know if you had
Yeah.
another group of four. I was about to get jealous.
Yeah, no. I would never cheat on you, Ashley.
You know me with another group of four. Okay.
No, and there's one of them that was saying, we say don't compare yourself to others, be the best version of yourself. And then
Mhm.
there's another one, and if I find it, I'll send it to you so you can drop it in the description. I can't even think of what it is right now. So let's just take a bodybuilder, for example. And you see all these pictures, you see the routines, you see the nutrition, you see all this, but then you don't see the 4 hours that was spent in the gym, 2 hours before work and 2 hours after work. And you don't see all the food prep that goes into it that was, 4 hours on a Sunday or 2 hours on a Sunday and
Very
2 hours on a Wednesday. And
yeah.
you don't see the sacrifice that that person takes without being with, not being with their family.
Mhm.
And you don't take into effect all of the money that goes into the equipment and the gym membership and the gloves and I mean, it just the shoes and the athletic wear, and it goes on and on and on. So what you see is this great, I don't even want to say an Olympian, but you see this person out there on social media, but you don't see the 100 other things that go into it. So I do think that sometimes people get the wrong impression of, oh, kind of like the Olympics. The Olympics are coming up and we see all these Olympic trials. You don't see that these kids for diving
Sure.
started diving at 5 years old. You don't see that.
No, it's wild. Like like you said, it's sacrifice. They've sacrificed so much, and yeah, there's so many years, sometimes weeks of prep, depending on what you're looking at. So much preparation behind the scenes. But again, like comparing yourself to that, especially in we as humans are very we love instant gratification, and like there are many times where it's like people won't see, especially losing weight. That's just we'll talk about that. That's a lot of people want to lose weight. When you lose weight, it's oftentimes like it takes weeks to lose sometimes a few pounds. Like it depends on the person. It does not like some people will work out for 2 days and be like, oh, I don't see it. I'm mad at myself. And it's like, no, be gentle with yourself. It takes a long, it takes time.
Takes
And
years.
it takes years sometimes. And just
Yeah.
be gentle and don't be mad at yourself for that because, well, I mean, I guess maybe that's toxic positivity. But like you can feel, I guess, mad at yourself, but at the same time, be gentle with yourself because there are so many factors that go into it. Like I used to, I I want to lose weight as well, but like one thing my doctor says, like I wanted to get down to a certain weight, and I was like, my legs bulk up very quickly when I run, when I lift weights, whatever. My legs bulk up, and like that's just how my body is. There, I will never look like Taylor Swift or something. Even if I want to look like her, your body is just different. Like you could train for years, and I'll never look like her, obviously. But
No,
comparison, it's hard.
yeah. And I do think that there's an epidemic with that too.
Yeah.
With this image, regardless of its body image, if it's work image, if it's life image, if it's whatever the image is that you're looking for or looking at, step back and think of everything else that went into it
And there's,
because it's not easy. None of it is easy. Not one thing is easy.
I mean, that's been around for years. I don't know about, I mean, obviously women, especially, we get inundated with ads and stuff. But like magazines, I mean, where did the whole white picket fence thing, that like that's been around for decades, like you should be here, you should be doing, people comparing themselves and trying to get that perfect house with two, what is it, 1.5, 2.5 children and a golden retriever, and it's like
1.5 dogs and
1.5 dollars. It's just, it's
that's the should be.
the should be could have,
Yeah,
should
should
be.
be good.
It's weird. But one more point I wanted to bring up, I hope we have time.
We
I
do. We
Okay,
do.
because I had mentioned this to you when we first decided we wanted to do this podcast, because, and I don't think this is controversial at all, but I think there is a difference though between being toxically positive and then a chronic complainer. Like, so for instance, like I think there's a difference between, like, you have a medical scare and you're feeling sad and you need someone to talk to. That is completely different than, I think, than someone who sits in traffic and just like, oh, I hate traffic, and someone cut me off and blah blah blah, and or someone who just, but, and I do that too. Sometimes I get upset. But I don't know if you've met people who are just constantly complaining about every single thing in their life, where it's like, I I don't know. What do you think? Because I don't try to be like, "Oh, well, you should be positive." But I find myself not wanting to be around that.
I do. I actually have a relative that on Facebook probably still is. I have unfollowed my relative, but everything was complaining. Absolute, like legit complaining. Nothing was ever good enough. Nothing was ever right. Nothing was ever anything. And I said, so privately, not on Facebook, but privately, what have you done to fix? So he was moving from one state to another, complaining about that. And I said, did you or did you not choose to do this? Well, yeah, I did. Okay, so why are you complaining about it? If you chose to move, how did you think this was going to happen? By magic? Because that's only in Harry Potter movies.
Hmm.
And he just said, well, and I was like, no, you need to take accountability and ownership for the choices that you make. And then it was something else. And then it was something else. And then it was something else. And I said, I don't have a problem if you are upset about it, but what is the problem solving? What problem are you trying to solve? And then what are your solutions? What is your main solution? What's your backup? Dead silence. I said, then stop complaining. If
Hmm.
that's all, he is a chronic complainer,
Because,
absolutely chronic complainer, but has no, I think it's just attention seeking, actually. I
yeah,
think he's just trying to engage people in a conversation, and people are so disgruntled by it and don't, that's the kind of I'm allergic to negative people. It should be I'm allergic to complaining people
because
because it's constant.
I believe there is a difference between someone who is feeling emotions, rightfully so, and not to say that when we get cut off in traffic, we can feel mad, but at the same time, like, I don't. It's such a mind. I don't know. It's something we all come across. And there is something to be say if you complain. I mean, that maybe not the greatest example, but I think we all have someone in our lives that we just hear complain for the sake of complaining,
Mhm.
just because they feel like they want to, not for any necessarily good reason. I don't know, but it's hard because it's like sometimes you try to be there for them, and then you realize, well, sometimes they can say one thing and then they complain about the exact opposite of the thing, like they just cannot be happy. Maybe that's the, I don't know, but I've known people that just like to complain for the sake of complaining, and it's hard because it's like, well, I'm not really being, I don't want to be toxically positive, but what happens when you're around someone like that, and it's just not a good look. I don't know, it's just not good to be around.
Well, it also comes back to you can only help those that help themselves. So the person has to actually want to change. want to change their mindset, want to change their actions, want to change. And if they don't want to change, I don't want to be around that type of a person. And I did. I unfriended my own relative, but and I think that is also good because if that's not something, so I've tried to reach out several times. It's not like I just said a couple of times, "Oh, since you're so negative or not negative, since you complain all the time and you don't take any advice and you don't try to have any solutions, I just can't be around you." So it's not like I just did it twice and was like, "Oh, I can't be around you anymore." I mean, this was reaching out and several family members tried to reach out and this person just will can does not know another life besides complaining, and I don't think that they realize how much they affect their family members, and they don't have friends. Well, why? Because you complain all the time. I wouldn't wanna be your friend either.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I've just thought I don't know, maybe we can open this up to our group is just do you find a similar situation where it's, how do you deal with people who constantly complain? Because oftentimes, you don't want to be it's hard to just be positive, because they just don't want to see any positivity. And it's not really one oftentimes they're not doing it, they're not feeling, they're just feeling a reaction. Sometimes it's just a reaction and not really like a I don't know, it's just hard because I think I'm not to say that not all feelings are valid. I mean, again, there are little things that get to you, but I think for the most part, chronic complaining is just it's hard.
Yeah. I struggle with chronic complainers,
Yeah.
and I'll distance myself because for me, that's what I need to do to keep my mental health.
Right, exactly. I think that's kind of where I was getting to is at when do the emotions of someone else encroach on your own? When we talked about this like last week or last podcast where we talked about boundary setting and, when do someone else's emotions encroach on your own? And, you can definitely be there for someone all the time, but if it's at the detriment of your own mental health, then you have to kind of recalibrate and say, especially if the other person is sometimes just doing it just to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
And
then
I
how
think
do
we
you
all could tell.
yeah. And then how do you protect your own mental health?
Right. Yeah. You've
I
got to.
distance or I speak up and say, "Do you wanna talk?" Or, "What solutions have you come up with? What's the real root cause? What's the real problem?"
Let's talk it through.
Right? Not
Yeah.
just, "I don't have a lot of money." So let's just say it was about money. Okay, but you can get a second and a third job. So it's not really about the money. So what is it really about? And then you go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Hmm.
But then the person has to accept that, acknowledge that, and
Hmm.
then move forward with the solution. And that's, I find, where people just are really struggle with problem solving. They just don't have those skills or coping mechanisms.
I mean, it's I feel like it's happened to everyone at some point. I mean, there are times where it's like I haven't wanted to see what's right in front of me. It happens.
It's different when you're in it versus when you're on the outside.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. It's there's so many things that go into it for sure.
Yeah,
But
they're
sometimes
def
it's like, why are you feeling okay? Why are you sometimes if someone cuts you off in traffic and they get upset and they're just complaining and complaining, sometimes there's a deeper thing there. I find that people who complain a lot, often it's like there's something else going on. We need to find what that emotion is because I think that's what's triggering all these other things.
Yeah, that's my point. What's the real problem?
Yeah.
So you got cut off in traffic, big deal.
Yeah.
That's
Happen.
not probably what the real issue is.
No.
No.
So much good information. This is a really cool topic.
It is a very interesting topic, and sadly, mental health in America is sadly on the back burner, and I don't think that our politicians or our government takes it seriously. We have a huge mental health crisis in America, and this is just such a small part of it.
They say that mental health is such a big factor in your physical health. Like that's something that I've learned a lot is like stress causes so many issues in your body. Like I think, yeah, our politicians are quick to put, a band-aid on these things when it's really like you just need to get to the root cause of it. And a lot of
Mhm.
times it's mental health.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that one day we'll figure that out. Maybe.
I'm hopeful that people will reach out and ask for help if they need help because
Yep.
maybe they don't know what the real root cause is.
Right.
I mean,
That's why I
I've
went to
had
therapy.
yeah, I've had lots of experience with it, and like that day on Thursday when I was feeling so off, I thought, "Okay, I need to take 15 minutes and sit down and figure out what is off. What am I doing right and what am I not doing that I really enjoy doing?" And voila! Come
Boom.
Friday, it was really just I got back to what I needed to do, and I felt like I was back on track.
Yeah.
Routines, maybe our next podcast should be on
Ooh.
routines.
I love that. I have a few apps that I used for that because I
You
think,
do?
yeah, there's a really cool app about it. It's like a habit app. Well, I don't use it anymore, but I can definitely explain it to people. What is it called?
That would be really interesting. I guess I didn't know that you had that. That's so I learned something about you every time we talk.
It's called Fabulous. It's a
Okay.
daily routine planner. Well, it's funny you said that. Yeah, because last year, we'll do a quick aside. Last year, I think routine was monumental in helping my mental health. Like coming up with something like hiking. I went hiking like all the time, and like coming up with a routine of hiking helped me so like tremendously. But yeah, like I read Atomic Habits, which great book. You read that one, right?
I listened to it on Audible when I was doing 75 hard.
Yeah.
No, I lied. I did not. Everybody talked about it when I was doing 75 hard, but I didn't listen to it on Audible until after I did 75 hard. But I was still walking, so I guess that part of my routine was the same. But yes, loved, loved, loved Atomic Habits.
Oh, that's a great book. Like it's probably I only have maybe 4 books that I have given a 5-star review to, or like 5 out of 5 stars, and that's so good. And he has so many like handouts and stuff you can get online. He has a little email that goes so much great information. But around that time I was reading Atomic Habits, and then I got this habit planner because there were just little things where I'm like, I just need to get into a routine of like especially like drinking more water. Like I don't drink enough water still, but I sure as heck did not drink water back then. I was terrible about it. Like making sure I get up early to like one thing that I just realized I had let go is like I just doing my hair. Like I just would just comb it and go. And I found that I felt 10 times better about myself when I actually would do my hair, and then you can spray stuff in it and it lasts for like 3 days. But that spending that 20 minutes on my hair was monumental to like my confidence. Like it's mind
Mhm.
blowing. But let's talk about that in an episode. It's just
Okay, so
great
routines will be our
topic.
next episode for the August
Yeah.
drop.
Great topic. Yeah. And if anybody has anything they want to add before that, so we can talk about it.
I will throw it out there on Facebook either tonight or tomorrow night.
Okay. Sounds great. Yay. I'm excited.
Take it. So, toxic positivity, the best thing that you can do is say to somebody, "Thank you for sharing. I'm here if you need me. Do you want to talk? How can I help you? Is there anything I can do to help you?" But
Just empathize. I think it comes down to empathy.
I do too. But please don't say, "Get your positive vibes back up there," or "Change your mindset," or "Everything will be fine." Those typically don't help out, and
No.
they're really counterintuitive.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a great.
Counterproductive. Sorry, I used the wrong word there. Counterproductive.
I
Not
got what
good.
you're saying. Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway. And also just give yourself grace too. When you do feel those emotions, give yourself grace. We all have them.
We do.
Don't feel like you're weird because you have them. And cry. Well, you don't cry very often. When I feel angry or mad or sad, I cry it out and I feel immediately better. Crying is totally fine. If you like to cry, cry. If you don't like to cry, it's fine too. But
Yeah, my mom is a huge crier.
Yeah. It's the Gemini in us, right?
Probably. And if our listeners are hearing groaning, it's Ashley's dog Highland.
He's groaning in the background. He wants attention. I'm simultaneously petting his belly and recording this podcast.
Oh,
The
Highland.
beast. Yes. I wish he normally sits behind me, but we'll see. Well, anything else you can think of before we go?
No, I thought this was a great topic. Thank you for chatting.
Thank you too. And to everyone, stay awesome.
And keep reaching for your anything.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.